Imagine moving from a customer insight to concept creation, validation, prototyping, and a marketing message in just a couple hours. That is what I saw the six small teams each do at the Inspire Innovation Conference that PDMA hosted recently. We used a custom model for ChatGPT to make such rapid progress. In this episode, we're going to share how you can do that as well. The person that created the custom AI model and led the workshop is with us, Mike Hyzy. Mike is a senior principal consultant at Doherty Business Solutions. He advises executive teams on AI innovation and strategic product management, combining data-driven insights with cutting-edge technology to drive transformational change. Previously, he's been a product management consultant and has held senior product management roles. As I learned about this at this PDMA conference, PDMA was also kind enough to sponsor this episode, and PDMA is the Product Development and Management Association. They're a global community of professional members whose skills, expertise, and experience power the most recognized and respected innovative companies in the world. PDMA also is the longest running organization for us product professionals, having started in 1976. And they have been researching and contributing to the body of knowledge to help us do a better job as product managers, innovators, and leaders. I've also been a contributor to this organization and proud to be the co-author on the most recent Body of Knowledge for Product Innovation book. You can find out about the resources the association has for us product professionals and why you should be a member as well at pdma.org.
How can you unlock your full potential as a product manager? We're sharing the product management insights you need. They are based on the 7 research-backed knowledge areas for product mastery. You'll learn to create products customers love, enhance your influence, and elevate your career. Welcome to Product Mastery Now, hosted by Dr. Chad McAllister, product management professor, practitioner, and your guide.
Let's jump in and learn about conducting an AI-powered design sprint. Mike, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Chad. It's good to be talking with you today.
I really just kind of want to, if you could help listeners step through the workshop you did, where we don't have the 2 or 3 hours to do it interactively with each other. That would be a lot of fun. But to take us through going from kind of this initial insight, I don't even know how you framed it in the beginning of the workshop because I missed the first few minutes of things, but initial insight for what could become something that creates value for a customer, right? And we're working all the way from that initial insight to the end, clickable prototypes, in this case, mock-ups and a user interface, using your AI model that you put together in ChatGPT. And is it also possible that you can give all of us access to your model so we can play with this ourselves?
Yeah, for sure. I'll send you the link so you have it, and anyone is free to pick it up and start experimenting with it.
Fantastic. I love that. And you may have some slides that you share along the way to help explain this. If you're listening, just listeners, be aware we also do have a YouTube channel so you can see the video version of this. Simply do a search on Product Mastery Now on YouTube and you will find that. Mike, so where do we start?
Yeah, so I'm going to pull this up and kind of go through the flow of the workshop.
Okay.
So the first 15 minutes, I went through a PowerPoint presentation. Not going to go through all of it here. I introduced the facilitators, what we do at Doherty Business Solutions, and the importance of strategic foresight. That's when it starts. And the first part of the workshop, which was about 2 hours and 45 minutes after I spoke, I said the one thing. I'm like, we're not going to have time to go over strategic foresight. I have friends and colleagues that go through weeks and months of classes in strategic foresight. But my advice to the groups that were in this workshop was, don't think about what the customer needs are right now. Think about what the customer needs are 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now. Because we know we can't make a corporate product overnight, and it takes time for research and development and approvals and all this stuff. So think about the product in the future. And that's where this AI design sprint starts. It's about foresight, thinking, exploring ideas, try to forecast the future, imagine the possibilities. We do a little bit of talk on that. We do a back of the napkin exercise. We get an idea, right? So groups think about what's a problem that we're trying to solve. What ideas do we have? Then we go through the triple diamond decision-making framework. So think about the problem, think about the jobs to be done around this problem. Who are the customers having this problem? What are the needs and the markets? And the triple diamond is more about converging and diverging on this. So think about all the needs that are there, right? And then kind of diverge on what are the most important and critical needs. And then who are all the customers that have these needs? And then what are the most critical customers we want to target? And then think about the markets. Is there a market? What different types of markets are there? And what would be a market to settle in? And then do that research. So the great thing about having ChatGPT is that we select a market. We could immediately say, what's the market analysis on where we want to go? How many people, how much money, what's the TAM, right? What's the total addressable market, what's the serviceable market? Where previously that could have taken us weeks of research, right? Or how do we find it? Do we have to survey things like that? We could get that immediately from ChatGPT, and that's what makes this a 3-hour workshop instead of 3-day workshop. One of the things.
Yeah, and so just clarity on that triple diamond decision making part. It's understanding the customer's problem, their unmet needs, the job to be done, all kind of the same ways of phrasing that. Who the customer is. So, oh, hey, you have a picture for us. So go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah. So this is a friend and fellow consultant sent this to me, and he's like, this is a really great framework when we're doing workshop, when we're doing product development, because you're prioritizing jobs to be done, and you're looking at these three different diamonds and exploring each of them, because 42% of companies cited no market need as their main reason for failure, right? Think about that. You're creating problems to be solved, but you're not exploring, is there a market for this need? Is there a market for these customers? Is there a market for this solution? And sometimes we jump to conclusions, right? And we think, well, I have this problem. There must be, other people must have this problem. And 42% of the time they don't.
Right. Well, this is the classic example, which I've lived through, and many other product people have lived through, of your CEO coming back from meeting with a key customer and say, oh, I uncovered this need our customer has. Let's build a solution for them. And we find out that we don't have any other customers that actually want a solution for that problem, right? It's like, gosh, there's not a market there.
So then once we validate the market, then we're like, all right, we have a market for our solution. We go back in the classic, right, double diamond solutioning. Ideas converging and diverging with ideas and solutioning, and then take those ideas and define and refine them. So, and I'll show an example in a little bit, but we're going through this process that I created through this custom GPT, and a lot of it's asking you questions and really challenge you to go through the steps that you should go if you're going to take a product from ideation to conceptual prototype to launch. Is, are we getting feedback? We had the groups take their ideas and pitch to the group across from them, and vice versa, and get feedback from other humans that weren't part of the conversation, right? And that feedback's critical to see, like, hey, what you guys are thinking about and talking about, are other people saying this problem the same way? Are they seeing the solution the same way? And really clearly articulating both what the problem statement and value proposition is.
Yeah, I found this combination particularly useful, right? So walking through, and the combination I mean is having the people in your small team working through the problem together, and then as an extra second component, interacting with the AI model to help you identify other information about this, right? And maybe questions we should be asking about this, maybe some blind spots, filling in some things and triggering us to help our brainstorming. And then the third part was, as you just shared, interacting with another team to get feedback, that external perspective, right? And in the workshop, we don't have customers per se to interact with, representative of our market, but we were using them as a proxy and sense of other people to help us. And so that combination, like, hey, I'm working together with my team through this. We're using the AI tool to accelerate this rapidly, and we're also validating it in a sense where we've gotten to by talking to customers. And I thought that was a really powerful combination of those three elements, and in a couple hours, huge progress was made.
Yeah, and very cool, right? Like, part of the process, being able to get through and get that feedback real time and entering it into the GPT to update your problem statement, your value proposition, and get us prepared for the next stage, which is prototyping and further testing. So a little disclaimer here, where we're at with artificial intelligence and technology. We're creating wireframes and UI and clickable prototypes. This does not replace the UX person, the UI designer, the engineer that you have on your team. These are just very quick prototypes. We used to do like cardboard cutouts for this back years ago, pre-AI, and we'd whiteboard things, right? This is kind of the same concept. We're just really rough and dirty images out and prototypes. So ChatGPT's interested with their imaging. It took some groups longer than others, but we all got there. And we started with wireframes and having ChatGPT feeding it. Here's our product idea. Here's the value proposition, right? All these stages are building upon each other. And then we ask it to create a wireframe. We look at the wireframes. We give feedback, change this, do this style. And we go through the wireframe process. And then it's like, all right, well, we want you to design, I think we picked 5 features for each group, right? And this is your MVP. Here are the 5 features. We want like the design the style of design that Google uses, and we want light neutral colors, and whatever that design intuition is from the group, they put in there. And then the GP creates 5 different images, and then those are your feature screens. And again, going through the process, right? Talking with your team, I like this, I don't like this, let's change colors, back and forth, giving that feedback. And then we're moving into a little bit more complex phase, which is, hey, code a clickable prototype for me. And ChatGPT actually does a pretty decent job of coding. In this particular example, our prototypes were based off of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to give it that functionality. And we needed a platform for it, so we used CodePen. And the groups were able to copy and paste the HTML, CSS, and Java into CodePen and have a clickable prototype with forms they could enter, calendars they could use, all the things like that. So it was incredibly interactive.
It was a great experience, being able to get that much done in such a little amount of time and have something representative of our ideas. I also found the interaction, and you'll take us through this in a moment. I don't mean to leave listeners hanging to want to walk through each one of these steps, but doubling down what I said before about those 3 elements, the team interaction was super beneficial. If it was just me and the AI tool, there would have been things that would never have come up, right? And I think that would have been true for anyone around the table. So someone threw out at our table talk about pricing, and like, we need pricing tiers. And later I thought, well, we also need to have a discussion about why would someone want to go from the free version to the first paid level? What's going to be that trigger, right? And then, so we came to a conclusion on that, and then we just asked the AI tool to represent that in the prototype, right? To incorporate that for us. It was a really interesting kind of companionship going around the table and then using the AI tool kind of as a member of the table as well. So can you walk us through kind of what prompts you're using, how you put this into place?
All right, so here's a GPT. It's called AI Design Sprint. It has some starter questions, but let's walk through what we did for the workshop.
And listeners, we'll give you a link to this model at the end of the discussion here so you can walk through this yourself.
So also happy to send the deck out with the steps in it.
Oh, fantastic.
So while we're at the workshop, just to make sure that teams are on the same page, I had a slide for each section of this. So the first prompt is the most important prompt, and I'll kind of go over this as GPT's working. So we are identifying that you are going to help us develop a new product. We're going to use the triple diamond decision framing to help us explore needs, customers, and markets. And I only want you to work on one stage at a time. How we break this up is doing that one stage at a time. And it's probably about 9 to 10 stages altogether. So start with the discovery phase and ask me what my idea is and and corresponding questions. And then give some ideas on how to facilitate the conversation. Only once I enter all my responses, ask me if I want to move to the next stage. So there's a couple key things here in this prompt. First, and corresponding questions. Have the GPT ask you questions back for 2 reasons. 1, it wants your input. And 2, if you forget something, it will ask you a question. Hey, you answered 3 out of my 5 questions. You didn't talk about this or this. What's your response? And you can either say, skip, I don't know, find it for me, or give your information if you want to make it more robust and customized. And then, again, staging. Only after you identify one thing in the process do you move to the next stage.
Right. So just to be clear, you just went through 3 key parts of what I think are, at least I have stumbled across as helping to make good prompts, right? Which is provide context, right? Tell it role the AI tool is playing in this problem, right? What the problem is, provide context, encourage it to ask questions to get the information that it hasn't been provided yet. So think about this, ask questions on things you need, and do things in stages. We're not writing one long prompt for everything. We're chunking it up, and so far my experience is that AI tools work much better when you give it one thing to focus on, and then we continue on from there.
Exactly, right? Especially that last part. Focus on one thing at a time, and then we'll move to the next step.
Okay.
Another key thing I put in there, because it's distributed, because it wasn't me doing a workshop with 42, 50 people, however many was there, was me directing these groups that had their own facilitators. So we had product managers and data scientists from Doherty Business Solutions embedded within the groups, and they're the facilitators. So knowing sometimes like our data scientists aren't facilitators, or maybe our product people haven't been facilitating, I put in some guidelines, right? So like down here's how you could facilitate a 5 to 10 minute discussion with your peers. Tell a story, try brainstorming, use what if scenarios, keep a timer, right? So these are all things to keep the conversation moving. And the 3 hours that we had were broken down into like 10-minute sections. So how many of us like come up with a product idea in 10 minutes? It's like, oh my God, right? There's so many processes. Where do I start? Have some key ideas to help you move through that. So, All right, Chad, what's our idea? What do we want to create in 30 seconds?
In 30 seconds. Can I use the one that we did? Because I loved it from the team project. If I get to reuse this one. Because I walked into this, as I said, I was a little bit late to this session because of doing an interview for another episode. But the team was working on the problem of how do I use the space I have at my house in my yard to create a garden.
Use the available. All right, so I didn't answer all the questions, so we're going to skip some things just for the sake of time, and then it's going to fill some of this out for you. So addresses the challenges of limited or awkward garden spaces, right? I mean, awkward, good way to put that. Many people want to start a garden but struggle to understand how to use the space they have effectively, especially in urban or smaller environments. Small balcony, backyard, right? I think we've dealt with this living in Chicago, right? You have a 3 by 8 foot balcony, and those are your options of what you could plant in your outside space. So great, let's move on to the next phase. First step was, what's your idea? First phase in the discovery process is to identify the needs, right? Going back to the triple diamond framework, it's going to ask all these questions. And give me some ideas to facilitate the conversation. So Chad, either you could throw out some responses for me, or I could say just figure it out on your own AI.
Okay, so what were you responding to?
Who would benefit from this product? What are the needs? Who are they, and what are their needs?
Yeah, so I like the constraint that you introduced of maybe this is the city dweller who has a balcony to work with, and they really want to add some fresh herbs and aesthetically pleasing flowers to their balcony. This is not a path we went down in the team, so I thought this might be fun.
Yeah, that's cool. We got a starting point, and now the ChatGPT model is going to highlight, right? So here's your persona, city dweller with only a balcony. The needs is information they don't know about gardening, but they want to grow like flowers and herbs. And then we'll go through, and it's gonna print all this information out too. Something else that we did during the workshop, sometimes ChatGPT will give you 4-page responses with a ton of detailed information, and we have to update the model and say, hey, thank you for printing all this. Right now, I only need 1 paragraph or 2 paragraph responses with a couple bullet points. And we might get to that spot if the time constraints on here. So great. So it's like, all right, I give you all that information. Next step in the process is understanding customers. So what are the core motivations? What would prevent them from gardening? What kind of experience or features would delight them? So really start to think about who are your customers and kind of facilitating that talk about personas. So what's the core motivation? Chad, why do we live in the city and want to plant herbs and flowers?
To be able to have fresh herbs, things that we're growing ourselves that we can use in the food we're cooking.
And I will say we want flowers because we live around too much concrete.
Right. Like it.
So also, we're not answering all these questions, but it seems to be so far ChatGPT is filling in the gaps in our responses. So
Yeah.
core
And what is
motivation.
wonderful about this is this we're playing back and forth, right? We're playing off each other, right? With if you and I were part of the team here, and then with maybe some of the additional prompts that ChatGPT is giving us, filling in some holes that we haven't thought about yet, and then causing us to think about those aspects as well. It's just a great way to generate a deeper understanding of the problem and the customer, and then carrying on to some possible solutions.
Right, and we could spend a lot of time here too, right? And we
Yeah.
could go, we could change this prompt and say understanding customers. And if we're seriously building a product, we could say, actually, we're targeting 6 different personas. Let's go and create a persona for each user. And we could really dig in on each phase of this. All right, so next step, market analysis. So who are your key competitors? This is the one that I will recommend that, Chad, we say, hey, could you find this information for me?
Okay, go right ahead. Having one of these, I was thinking a key competitor is the countertop hydroponic thing that lets me grow herbs in, right? But not out on the balcony.
Oh, well, we got some key competitors. We're getting in the space of Garden Planner and Garden Answers and Blossom.
Oh, okay.
So they have easy to use visual interface. Traditional garden beds may not translate well into balconies. Chad, we may be onto something here.
We
This
might
may
have
be a
found a
product.
niche.
Yeah, city dwellers, Chad and I may create a balcony garden app, making it useful for small space, does not focus on face management or layout optimization. Well, you're going to need that on your balcony.
I better
Can't be
grab
awesome.
some URLs, domains before listeners grab them before us.
All right, so then it says, here are your key differentiators in the market. Here are things that you could do differently, and then here are market trends. It's still going. So this is one of those, going back to my comment, if you're really strapped for time, you would say, give me a couple bullet points, or give me a response that's no longer than 400 or 500 words or something like that. So I think we're almost there,
Yeah.
though.
But and also we are condensing this to a 30 minutes or so interaction for the discussion here, compared to a 2 to 4 hour activity that we could do with our colleagues, and come up with some really reasonable outputs that would help us think through the problem.
And here too, usually after each phase, so there's the discovery, definition, and development. Usually after development, I would say, please give me a summary of all this, and then we would copy and paste that somewhere. So let's say if we want to start this up later, we could just copy and paste, hey, this is the work that we've done so far, let's continue. Because you don't know ChatGPT's updated, your chat might expire, all these other things. So also recommend kind of like saving at certain points. So
That's a good idea.
key insights. What are the key user insights? What opportunities exist? What's the core functionality that your product should deliver? So, it is giving us an update based off of user needs insights, core functionality. It's kind of built this with us. Secondary features, nice to have. So we kind of got prioritized MVP right here. And then here's some things for us to talk about. Focus on prioritization. Once you've synthesized these insights, we'll move on to concept development. So a lot of these, here are the insights. Are there anything that we want to change? For sake of time, Chad, I think let's go with the core functionality. All right. Okay, let's move on and focus on the core functionality.
This is great to see it take place live here with you. And again, if you're listening, fantastic. I'm sure you're getting a lot of value out of this. If you want to see this, find our YouTube channel, Product Mastery Now, and to go through this. And we're not, once again, we're not in just ChatGPT asking it these simple prompts. We're in the custom model that Mike created that understands what a product development cycle is like and how we go through those stages of exploring ideas, understanding what the problem is, the customer, the larger market, thinking about alternatives to solutions, and then we'll get into defining and refining those solutions and moving into prototyping here. So you do have to have the custom model to get all of the particular details.
Yeah, and it's just moving on here. It's, as we're going through, it's saying like, all right, so here are your 4 features that we're going to work on. Here's the purpose. Here's how it works. Here's the user flow. If we're going to get detail out of this, I would probably copy and paste these, maybe a separate chat, and having it break out features, epics, user stories, tasks, like that. the updates to ChatGPT now, you could actually do that, export it to a Excel file, and then upload it into Jira. So you're importing these things into Jira. It saves so much time. I'm actually doing a talk on that next month at Product Camp Chicago about how to like 10x your product management with like using these tips and tools. And again, ChatGPT, I don't feel like it shouldn't be doing the work of anyone else, but it's helping us move faster, and it's helping us with efficiency gains so we could focus on more creative stuff. So, all right, are these key features? Yes. Well, yes, these are the key features. User flows are good. Yes to all. Let's work on wireframing. Here's the kicker in this part. You need to be very specific that each wireframe, each feature has its own image. Otherwise, it tends to cram a bunch of things together. So please make sure that each feature has its own screen and image. So you are creating, how many features do we have? 5. We're creating 5 separate features, 1 for each, 5 separate images, 1 for each feature. So this will take a minute. So the back end of this is connected to DALL-E. So this is actually in a separate division of OpenAI. So ChatGPT sending an API to DALL-E and receiving that information back. So it constructed the prompt and start AR garden, right? So we're getting the first wireframe. It's showing this in this kind of horizontal across. Here's plant recommendations. Here's some tasks that you have to do. Progress.
Okay.
Here's the AR, adjust the layout. That's pretty cool, right? For putting the concept together.
Exactly, yeah. So what we're looking at are images that look like they would be from a phone, that this would be a smart app, a app on our smartphone to use. And one of them is taking the augmented reality feature and letting you plan out your balcony garden based on looking at your balcony garden.
Yep. Yeah, it's showing you the kind of like that AR lens, like you could, pick the plants that you're thinking about and how they would fit in space and different measurements, different ways to do that. We got 1, 2, 3. It seems to be stuck on the 4th image, which happens.
And these mock-ups are surprisingly good. It's only been a generation ago that the DALL-E did not know how to deal with text well. And these look like usable smartphone mock-ups. A UX person would not run with these as is, certainly, but it's conveying the story for us, right? It is conveying what was captured in those 5 features as text, now putting them into literally a picture format that I could take these and start collaborating with others in the organization about where we're headed with this and start getting their ideas. And we'll get to a point where we're maybe working on a clickable mock-up that we could further validate with customers as well.
Yeah, and if you can't tell by the Adobe pillows in the background, like I am a designer by training as well. So I love this from a design perspective. If I'm going to design an interface or something like that, I look at this and this is like feeding me ideas. I didn't think about that. That's cool, right? So it's spinning the wheels in my head to go on Illustrator and start mocking up some images or wireframes, based on the images that I've seen. So okay, this is cool. Let's move on to final UI. Let's do earth tones like Whole Foods. I'm just throwing that out there for an example. And create the final images. Make sure each one has each one, again, descriptive. Each feature has its own image. So that's going to create that. While it's doing that, I'm going to kind of jump ahead. So once we get the final UI, we're going to ask it to create the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And what I've found very helpful as a tool is called CodePen. So CodePen is a free-to-use website. You just got to create an account, and it allows you to copy and paste HTML, CSS, and JavaScript for a clickable prototype. My test concept on this whole workshop I was creating a workout and nutrition app, which I did actually create on ChatGPT, which is a whole different conversation chat, to where anything that you eat, you can take a picture of in ChatGPT, and it will almost 100% accuracy tell you how much food is on your plate, what that food is, and what the nutritional value is. So all these the times that we live in, ChatGPT, another use case.
A lot of nutritional smart apps for your smartphone just got replaced.
Yeah, I was testing it against others that I will not name, and I'm like, oh, ChatGPT's got a pretty good hold on this. All right, so the images are going to take a minute, so I'm going to jump ahead and kind of explain how this works, and we could do our concept later if we have time. So it's literal clickable prototype. So I have my dashboard, and you know what? I'm going to eat lunch, so I'm going to get my meal tracking ready. I could take a photo, I could scan a barcode, I go back to home. So does it exactly match the designs that it came up with? No, and I don't think that's really the point of it. I think the point here is like you have ideas for the designs, but when we're going through we're really testing the user flow in this example. Right. You have the right functionality, it's easy to navigate.
Yep. So we've gone over to CodePen, taken the HTML, JavaScript, CSS that ChatGPT can produce for us in relationship to those mock-ups we just saw. For sake of time, we jumped to an application you already have that you started. So this is the nutritional tool. But in CodePen, we just take the output of ChatGPT. We ask ChatGPT to build mock-ups for us, wireframes, suitable for a smartphone. And we take the output from that and paste it into CodePen, and we get wireframes.
Yep. And one of the things that you're seeing if you're following around visually, like the log workout, I'm getting an error here because I did not go into that much detail myself. But during the workshop, when we would hit like, oh, like there's no code for that here, right? Like we hit a dead end in the clickable prototype, we would go back to GPT and say, hey, in workout tracking, I want to make sure like when I hit log workout, I get a separate screen that shows me all my workouts from like the last week. And then we'll go update the GPT and then update CodePen. So a lot of times going back and forth with the coding. Our designs are good. All right, our multi-million-dollar gardening design is done. And let's...
I like how you encourage the AI tool, which I always do as well. I'm always very polite, and I thank it and encourage it. Say, awesome, love that output. Well, let's make this refinement.
Yes. So people have commented that have taken classes that I've done on AI before. Like, why do you say thank you? Why do you say awesome? Like, I don't know. AI was just brought up that way, right? Naturally to communicate. And when the machines take over the world, hopefully they spare me because I've been nice to them since the beginning.
That's exactly my perspective. And I want them to learn to be polite too. So I figure we should be interacting with them in a polite way.
And JavaScript code. And so this is the exact opposite of the images. So please make sure that the code for all 5 features is together, and the only thing that is separate is the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
As you have learned from many iterations of working through your model here, how to get that.
Oh yeah, I tried to code each feature at a time, and that was A, not efficient, and B, prone for errors and lots of rewrites. So while that is loading the code, let's get a new one here. So new pen. Again, CodePen's free. I think it fits very well with ChatGPT. All right, so it's still writing our HTML.
Excellent. Yeah, and what we found during the workshop was, like back on those mock-ups, we would focus on, it would give us the initial, in this case 5, because we limited it to 5 features we wanted to pursue for sake of time. But then there would be one we would focus on and say, on this mock-up, change how you're dealing with the AR aspect of this, right? And give it some new information. And it would come back and give us a new mock-up. And same thing for the code, the JavaScript or HTML or CSS. We would ask for changes on one of those, and then it would come back, give us changes, paste that back into CodePen, see immediately. It was a very fast iterative process for making changes and improvements.
Yeah, I mean, you can see this from here on CodePen, right? Like, as we have, here's the HTML structure, and then We add the CSS. Obviously, there's going to be things in transition. I'd go back and say, hey, you forgot this or do this or whatnot. And then to make it interactive, we have our JavaScript, and we're putting that in there. And and here it all comes together. Now,
So we have a UI that is our garden dashboard, and we can get recommendations for plants that we want. We can get a plan made for what we're looking at.
We adjusted our notification settings, so now we'll be reminded when we need to water our plants and prune our herbs. Progress tracking, step-by-step guides. So imagine, this is just a little taste of what we did in 20 minutes or however long it is.
Right.
In the 3-hour process. So after this, I just want to wrap up. I thought a lot of the fun stuff was at the end. We had it write a 30-second elevator pitch for our product. And one representative from each group stood up in front of the rest of the audience, and they pitched their 30-second idea, and we voted for the ideas that we liked the most on Mentimeter. So there's a little Shark Tank pitch competition going on as well that really energized the audience and made this a ton of fun. If I was doing this for a client, I'd be more in depth, right? We'd be at this stage, we're taking the clickable prototype, we're showing it to maybe different departments, different stakeholders that are involved. And instead of a 30-second elevator pitch, we might do that, but then we're really going to look at like go-to-market planning. And I think here's another thing in product development, Chad, that I think is overlooked. I think in the beginning, it's not starting with foresight, right? And thinking about, by the time we actually launch our product, how different are the needs of the market going to be? How much did the socioeconomic conditions change than when we started this? And then a lot of people develop a product and then get to go to market when they're at this stage. And where really go to market to me should be even before the prototyping stage, when you're thinking about, hey, we're going to do this product. It's like, yeah, we're going to build it, but how are we going to build it? But how are we going to launch it? What's the market like? So develop my go-to-market strategy. And I think that another thing that, again, ChatGPT is not going to do everything, but it gets you started. And it really gets in your head thinking about, here are the people I need to get involved. Here's the target audience. These are the channels that I'm going to advertise in, if that's a thing, right? And how you're positioning. So, yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell, right? The super hyper version of the AI design sprint.
It's fantastic. And you took us through starting with exploring ideas, this triple diamond decision-making approach of understanding the problem, the customer, the market, then double diamond solutioning, which is broadening, doing some divergent thinking, and then coming back convergent on different types of solutions to identify those features, refine those, then bring those into a mock-up perspective, and then some wireframes that we can interact with, and then marketing messaging if we want, and go-to-market strategy thoughts as well. All of this taking place, I like that intersection between, I got a group of humans we're working with, I got the AI companion there to really speed some of the progress we're making and bring in some other information, help us through things we need to think about, and then the opportunity to validate these things with the customer right at the right points. And I just found great value in the workshop and really glad that you can bring it to everyone that pays attention to this podcast as well. There are tools like this that the companies are starting to put together and asking for money to be able to use, and I think some of those tools will be incredible aids to us as product people. But you're giving us free access to a model to play with this, which is a great thing. So we'll tell people how to get that in just a moment. But as we wrap up kind of what you did on the workshop there, we do like innovation quotes as well. And maybe you have one that relates to this or somehow relates to innovation. What do you have for us and what does it mean?
Yeah, I think I touched on this a couple times, but my quote would be, product innovation is about having the foresight, which is not about creating solutions for problems that we know exist today, but about anticipating challenges and opportunities that might emerge in the future. So, and what that means to me is just how rapidly things are changing, right? Think about it. ChatGPT's only been around for a while, and just the continuous improvements that we've seen. Now it could analyze Excel sheets, and we could do this AI design sprint, and it's creating wireframes. We're doing clickable code. Like, technology is moving at a lightning pace. So when we think of idea, I think it's very important, right? If we're thinking about creating something, what does the future hold? What are the opportunities, the challenges, the possibilities? And there's a lot of groups out there. I did some training at Institute for the Future out in Palo Alto. I think anyone in product management, it would be a great opportunity for your career to do some strategic foresight training.
Yeah, absolutely. Have ideas of what's coming next. There's a related episode, and I don't remember the sequencing of this, but that I talked with a guest while I was out there about competitive intelligence and how much that is really based on not what people are doing now so much, but trying to understand where they're going and then positioning yourself in the right place to respond to the market needs that others are not going to be there. So I think that ties in with your foresighting thoughts that we need to be planning for the future and trying to make some predictions about what that is.
For sure.
Okay, this is great. How can people find out about the company you work for, the work that you do, if people want to reach out? And probably at this point, importantly for listeners, how can we get our hands on your custom model that takes us through this?
For sure. Find me on LinkedIn, Mike Hyzy. My website's mikehyzy.com. There you'll find links to the Doherty Business Solutions website. You could reach out to me on LinkedIn. You could email me. Again, you could find me on LinkedIn, Mike HYZY on LinkedIn, or MikeHYZY.com. And there you'll have links to my blog. I publish on Substack. I write for Built-In as well, national publication, and I have a book, Gamification for Product Excellence. Yeah, I think that covers it.
Fantastic.
And designs. Chad, could we post it in the podcast description somewhere? Or?
Yeah. So the article version of this will be published at productmasterynow.com/517, and we will add the link to your model in that set of links that show up at the end of that article as well. So that's productmasterynow.com/517 to check out everything we just talked about in article format, and most importantly, find the link to Mike's custom model for ChatGPT that takes us through that design sprint.
Cool. Thank you so much, Chad, for having me. I appreciate it. I loved talking to you talking with you at the conference, and thanks for joining the workshop and having me on your podcast today.
Oh, thanks for being here. Love your expertise. Thanks for sharing it with us and what you're doing to help companies make use of these tools and figure out how to embrace them and get value out of them. So once again, listeners, if you want the article version, that's productmasterynow.com/517. And as always, keep innovating.
Thank you for listening to Product Mastery Now, where product leaders and managers gain product mastery through practical knowledge, influence, and confidence. By listening, you are becoming a product master, creating products customers love. Find additional resources at productmasterynow.com. Keep innovating.